What's good? What's good? What's good, family? Good evening, everyone. Just giving a few minutes here. I'm waiting on our co-host to join us. Hope everyone is having so far a good start to their Monday. Just bear with me. Again, as I wait on our co-host to join us. Let's see. Just going here while I guess we're waiting on our co-host. While we're waiting on our co-host to join us, which they are coming on backstage. All right. Yolanda, we're waiting for you to get your camera situated. And good afternoon, brother Chap.
Jabalin.
She got you a theme song.
Yeah.
I might be on no show because I look a hot mess.
Oh, will you stop?
Look at me. I ain't shaved in like a month. That's all.
So
I'm way worse.
You look at this, like you.
Not my hair.
Look, and I'm actually supposed to be on vacation today, folks. So most folks know that, like, I'm built like a Jamaican, like, multiple jobs constantly running. So for me to actually have a day off was definitely very unusual and a blessing. But then I didn't even get to enjoy it because I actually got called into work twice today. So I didn't even get to enjoy it. So,
well, if you're doing the show, it's not a day off. This takes work too, y'all.
Yeah, it takes work. But again, we love coming in, talking with the community and having these discussions. So for us, it's never work when we put our hands in our community. Again, let's get this started. So good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of Frontline News, where we bring you news from the front lines of America and beyond. And I apologize for the noise in the background. The doggies are acting up for some reason. But we have a great show for you this evening. And of course, we have some guests with us this evening to hopefully have some strong conversations as to what's going on in our community, especially in reference to our youth in our city. Of course, it seems like that's the biggest topic of discussion is the youth violence in our city and what to do about it, how to address it. No one really seems to have a solution, but those who we know are on the ground that are actually doing the work have the blueprint and are currently engaging with the youth in our community. And it's just sad, Chap, and you can kind of expound on this. It's just sad that from time to time we run into issues where the city doesn't seem to support those who are on the ground. Prime example, I saw Brother Umar at the radio station on Sunday, and he was still saying that he still wasn't getting that strong support from City Hall. And here's a man, who's in the trenches of Baltimore City, who has helped so many children go on to Golden Gloves, go on to the Olympics, go on to inspire to great things in reference to professional boxing, and emphasizing books before even swinging any hooks. So this is a man that's exemplified nothing but educational excellence from out of our community. But I had a conversation with him on Sunday, and he told me he still wasn't getting the support from the city that someone who has been doing the work in our community deserves to get. So you're on mute. Unmute yourself, chat.
Thank you. Jason, which one are we streaming on?
We're streaming on all of our platforms.
Which is?
Facebook, YouTube.
No, which Facebook channel? Page.
All of our Facebooks, blackusa.news, as well as our Frontline News, as well as Donnie Glover on YouTube, as well as Black USA.
Go to Black USA.
What about it?
On Facebook.
No, she's talking to listener.
Oh, trying to get somebody. Okay.
No, thanks for having me as on the show with you guys.
And thanks for
So,
holding us down, because you've held us down a few times too.
no,
So
man, yes, sir. It's a privilege
yeah.
to serve, man. So, for people who don't know, my name's David. Everybody calls me Chap. I'm a full time volunteer chaplain for Baltimore City through the police department. Um, I volunteer in the schools. I volunteer in the rec centers. Until COVID, I was volunteering in the juvenile detention centers. Just haven't had time to re fingerprint and get background checks for that. But there's definitely a need there. So that said, it's kind of where I'm coming from and why, how I connected with Yolanda and Jay. And yeah, I'll comment on Umar's conversation because he's been doing it a long time. He's raised generations of children. All 100% of them have positive narratives. Their truth is a positive narrative coming out of that space. And I emphasize the work he's doing. We're new kids on the block. So Agogi Projects in Bel Air Edison, it's a new boxing gym for youth program. Everybody, there's Umar, there's Upton, there's Corner Team, there's I don't want to forget anybody. We got a lot of good boxing programs in the city. Mac Lewis Foundation. We got ones who've been around for decades, and they don't get any support. And here's my soapbox speech is that we let's take a boxing gym let's say they're only training 50 kids, 50 kids a day, 5 days a week. It's 1,000 kids a month off the street, not being victimized, not victimizing people. Right. So right there, we're already serving the gun violence culture and reducing the liabilities and reducing the harm done to our children because we're getting kids off the street. So one gym with 50 kids, if they can get 1,000 kids off the street, that's 12,000 a year off the street. That's making a difference. But you want to give millions of dollars to a group like Safe Streets, and all they do, in my perspective, and I always stand to be corrected, but from my perspective, they just they have a perpetual conversation and they don't really do anything. We got these marching bands like Dynasty, Go Getters, Miss Evelyn and Miss Donna, Mass Destruction, right? We got all these neighborhood marching bands that keep hundreds of kids a couple nights a week off the street in band practice, and they're dancing and they're learning
And
to
one of them mines.
yeah, they're making their own uniforms, and y'all don't know they need help, man. They're using equipment that's 40 years old because they're not getting any help from the city. But again, a program like that's keeping thousands of kids off the street a month. You want to give all this money, like in January. I'll point back to January conversation the mayor had. Thank you. My son brought me lunch. Where he said in the same breath, he said that Safe Streets isn't getting the job done, so we're going to give them $10 million more. And he said that in January, and I think they're up to like 50 million more. So if you took some of that money, or why isn't Safe Streets being financially responsible and putting that money back into the neighborhood? I'll give you one more example, and then I'll let you guys kind of marinate on that. I went to a nonviolence, gun violence reduction community meeting where I wrote on a survey kind of in private our truth and our thoughts on some things that we'd like to see from Safe Streets. And they forced me to have the conversation in person. I tried to say this is not the space, it's not the time. And it got kind of like back and forth. And to my point, they had money for a budget to hold this meeting to talk about with the community and survey the community about the gun violence and some ideas. And they spent the money on Subway to feed people instead of going to Sharif's or going to Omar's spot or going to Safa Pizza or Gill's Pizza. Instead of putting the money they're getting back into the neighborhood, they're spending it. They're not. If you're not thinking that way about something simple like feeding a community meeting, then you're not using that money in the community because you're not even in that headspace.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I struggle with that. I've struggled even to we had this new initiative. The boxing gym's been on Bel Air Road in Urban for like a year now, and Safe Streets came in one time to drop off some flyers. And I don't want to make this conversation about Safe Streets. I'm just saying, but they're receiving money from the city. They're receiving the support from the city when there's more deserving people who are doing more effective work. That's all.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about your program and what your program actually is doing in the community. You said that you're currently engaged with 50 youth in the community, which, again, thank you for your service to our community. Let me tell us more about it.
Yeah, I would say, let me start off and share. Like I was talking to Yolanda yesterday, and the first thing I'll say in this conversation is that as humans, we can only love to the capacity that we've been shown love. And the reason that I have a capacity to, or a passion to lead the youth in a positive, empowered direction is because somebody along the way did that for me at some point. And so I know what it looks like, and and I'm always learning from the youth as well. So like even in one project, because we, like I said, I volunteer in a lot of different spaces, a lot of rec centers and other spaces, doing some good stuff in spite of the politics. The Agogi project. So there's a boxing gym we opened for free for youth, and then people in the community, if they want to train and they're interested in training and engaging the resources we have there, we don't want money to be an obstacle. So if someone comes, trains for a couple of weeks, and then they're like, well, I can't afford it, it's my job to figure out how to get you, a little tuition paid. It's fine. Just we want the community to have no obstacles. Come use this space. So we have 50 kids enrolled on paper. We don't want to get more than that in our little space right now. We roll in cohorts of 10. So, like, obviously, with 50 kids, not everybody's showing up or making the commitment, but you have to commit 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. Or, the kids that are showing up once a week, they're going to wean themselves out, and we'll replace them with a new cohort. We got a waiting list of people that want this free boxing and MMA training, but it's more than that. That's the vehicle, right? So, what their training looks like, we're open 4 to 8 Monday to Thursday and 8 to 12 on Saturdays. So 4 to 8 Monday to Thursday, they show up. 2 of those days a week, they're getting an hour of Spanish class before they even hit the mats or the ring. You can't even put on your gloves. We're going to have bilingual kids coming out of Bel Air Edison, like it or not.
Right.
And so they're with it. They're learning. And then they hit the mat and they train. Then on Saturdays we have a robotics class that comes through. We have a sewing class. Like, my son made this hat I was rocking before we put me on, man. Like, that's dope. Like, oh, there it is. My son made a hat. Like, he didn't know he knew how to sew. Now he knows how to sew. They have a garden, a community garden in Lake Clifton. So the kids every week, they tend the garden and they're taking home vegetables that they grew. Like little things like that. Like, you question the kids, like, hey, if all the grocery stores were closed or you didn't have any access to money, how would you survive? And, they had no clue how to garden, how to grow their own food, or, so on Saturdays, we bring in these other well-rounded, like, educational things to them, but always with the foundation of the discipline of fighting culture, of boxing culture, and it makes a difference. We have firemen, we have police officers in there training the kids, and I don't even think the kids know who they are yet. But when they see those kids on the street, or if an emergency arises and they see an officer show up, they're not going to be like, F the police. They might be like, oh snap, that's Coach Jimmy, that's Coach Steve. Or, if the fire department shows up because there's an emergency at their home, it's going to feel more personal, and they're going to feel a little bit safer knowing, oh, Coach Josh or Coach Arlen showed up to take care of me. It's not just the fireman, right? It's not transactional. Like, we're building a transformational culture, and then bringing people like I'm always begging you guys to come by the gym, because my kids really look up to the young entrepreneurs on the corner at Ermine and Bel Air Road, and I love them, but I need them to look beyond that to see what Black excellence and excellence of color looks like. So, like, yeah, Miss Yolanda Pulley, come through, right? Pull up. Miss Sheila Dixon, pull up. Chief Melvin Russell, pull up. Donnie Glover, pull through. Donnie slid through, man. Like, I need them to know what it looks like to be excellent and Black beyond the boys that are killing it on the corner.
Right.
And some of the guys are in there training, man. Like, that's a beautiful thing, man. We got some guys who could be in different circumstances, or who are recently, returning citizens from juvie, and or some that don't want to go to juvie, and so they're just hitting the gym hard. And one of our guys, not to say he's a bad kid at all, just to say that he is high risk because of where he lives and where he's from. This kid Trey is going to be fighting in our event. So we have an event. That's the other thing. We have an event coming up in 2 weeks on July 22nd. At Father Hooper Fields in Herring Run. It's at where Hartford Road meets Chesterfield. They opened up, the new bridge finally opened up. So there's this big grass bowl of soccer fields. We're renting it out. We're going to build a boxing stage, and basically it's a free to the community.
It's outdoors? This is outdoors?
First ever outdoor free to the community boxing event. We're going to have 15, 20 bouts. So I want to get Brother Umar, I want to get connected with him, because I don't know if we have any of his kids on our card yet, but we got Upton and Corner Team. We got Mac Lewis. We got guys from our gym. And then to fill the card up, we pulled a couple people from Philly and some other from other connections. But we definitely want to put our Baltimore kids on first. That's the priority.
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that if you're in the boxing culture, understanding that it's a USA boxing sanctioned fight. So all the kids that are fighting from Baltimore, they're getting amateur credits. They're getting amateur stats for these fights, win, lose or draw. So the pressure's on, man. It's really great culture that we're tapping into. Like I said, we're new kids on the block. Mac Lewis has stepped in and vouched for us in some spaces, and then corner team and Upton coming alongside and putting kids on the card. Like we're trying to build a competitive yet collaborative culture. Ain't nobody got beef, and if we do, it's gonna be in the ring, baby.
And it's this competitive sports that teach you things like sportsmanship, dedication, training, getting focus, these things, discipline, learning a system, because you have to learn a system. You just can't just go out there and start swinging blows.
Ooh.
You have to understand how to stand and how to throw throw the punches, and and all this takes technical training. And and again, I'm really proud that again you guys have been able to pull this together with the limited resources that you guys have, because again, everybody that we know of that is on the ground doing these type of programs, most of us are working off of shoestring budgets, and it shouldn't necessarily,
if you have a budget at all, because most of us are, look, Yolanda's smiling. We're all out of pocket, bro. This is how it is, man.
Most of it is love and dedication, from great folks like yourself and others. And again, thank you for the service to the community. Now,
and you know what? One thing I appreciate about it is that, like I said, it also teaches discipline, and it also teaches them how to direct their anger in another way and how to think before they react. And that is very important, because the places that's supposed to be teaching this, they are not teaching it. And the places that's supposed to be given and it's also, just like you said, it's a safe space for them to not live in the trauma that they're in daily, but for a couple of hours they get to get outside of what that looks like in their house or their neighborhood, their community, their school. And so I appreciate it, because just like you said, that's 50 kids that's not on the streets, especially like with Dayson's program, who they have to, they go to the after school stuff. They make sure their homework is done.
He takes some camping. I ain't going camping. Nobody.
I want to go camping,
bro.
I want to go camping.
August. So I'm gonna put it out there, Donna. Check this out. So Dayson is doing he's doing a full week from August 2nd to August 7th. They're doing.
I don't know about a week now. I don't know if I can do a week out
there. That's fine. But hear me out. So he's doing so. The reason that Dayson's one of my sons out here is because of a camp we used to call Love You to Life Camp. So Commissioner Harrison felt that that was not valuable, but let me explain to you why it's valuable. We used to have this camp we called Love You to Life. It was introduced by Major Featherstone over in the Central, and Chief Melvin Russell took it over until he was forced into retirement. So, Donnie's calling me. So this program we'd select 50 kids in the community, and they were selected because they were at risk or high risk, or maybe they were struggling. For whatever reason, they were selected for this camp, and some of them will be labeled as the worst kids in Baltimore, but that's not how we saw them. So we take the kids out to a camping experience. They have like the whole overnight. They learn to fish and swim and play basketball and do all the fun, the fun summer camp things. Like if you went to overnight weekend.
Sleeping in tents.
No. This was like a summer camp vibe. Like they'd stay in cabins. They go to the pool. They
oh wow,
a little cafeteria. We get them away from the city though. Unplug them, get them away from the city, and they had this whole camp experience. What they didn't know was all the counselors, the people cleaning the rooms, the people cooking their food. Everybody was police, but they didn't know. I was the only one not police, but I was a chaplain. So like I was, there was me and like one other chaplain or so. And so we'd have this camp experience. Kids are building relationships with the counselors and stuff. We'd have people like yourselves come in and do seminars with the kids. So like Val Jenkins, don't shoot. Tori Rose came through, did a phenomenal job. And I'm still itching to get her back. Right. So anyway, there was this camp experience, and we had community leaders like you guys come in and just share whatever truth you had to share to empower the kids and build up leadership skills in them. And so it was a really great program. And then at the end of the camp, whoever we could get, Kenny K, 5-star, Duke Live, DJ, Jay, we're going to get you out there. So we don't do the camp anymore.
I'm ready.
but like we'd have so the last day of camp, we'd have like next phase would cater like a lobster dinner for the kids, which they've never had nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait
we'd
a
have
minute, I ain't had
party,
nothing
right?
like that.
And it was crazy because some of the kids were like, "This is disgusting," but yeah, you've had lobster to know that you don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
You had the experience.
Yeah.
So we had this big party, and what I would do is I'd make the kids get an award to every counselor, best dressed, funniest, like silliest, whatever. Made sure it's intentional that the kids nominated all their counselors, the best cook, everything. And so as we give the awards out at the end of the week, the people would jump from behind the curtain in their dress blues, and they're wearing their police uniforms, and the kids have this like WTF moment. That's the police moment, but in that moment, you could see their brains flip over to, but that's my homeboy. He let me borrow his slides for the shower, or he taught me how to shoot threes, or he did this or that. So like you saw that moment transform, and they like felt betrayal because they're like, you ain't telling me you was police, but like you ain't that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now they saw them as people first and not police. And I'm telling
Right.
you, there's hundreds of numbers in my phone of young men across the city right now that went through that program over 3 years that I can call on the spot and they'll show up just because I called because of a relationship we built at camp.
So what
And
happened to that program, Chad?
so what happened to the program was when we brought in Commissioner Harrison to get ahead of the defund the police people, because you ain't heard that term in a while, he came and cut all the budget to proactive policing. One of the things on the chopping block, including our reentry program that Officer Ron Horn used to run. He does it for the state now. Because Baltimore City cut the budget
If you
for
need
it.
me to make some phone calls and make that happen again.
Well, so here's the thing. So like, anyway, when Harrison came in, he put all the proactive policing on the chopping block. We were lucky to keep the chaplain program, but that was one of the first things to go was this camp, because it didn't like the data drives the funding, and it didn't like 90 days later after the camp, you couldn't see a trend necessarily in crime going up or down in the zip code, right?
And that was the argument that at one time me and Frederick H. Commissioner Bielfeld had. He was saying that a lot of these programs like PAL, like these particular programs.
Started, man.
Yeah, he was saying that these programs were superficial at best. And I was like, superficial? No, you're saving lives.
Yes, we have generations of people right now who speak to that. Yeah. I didn't even know. I had a young lady last week telling me, we wish we had PAL. When I was a kid, I was in the youth PAL choir. I said, the police had a youth choir? She said, absolutely. They started me on my music career.
You know why, you guys? Because we in this lifetime of instant gratification, and they're looking for the numbers right now. But just like you guys said, programs like that we remember that impacted us. Right. If they take away all of those programs, they won't have anything to impact them at all. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. Except the crime.
Right. What's interesting is that my son will attest to you. He will tell you that PAL kept him off the streets. And in many cases, it kept the police from not knowing who he was. Because these officers were engaged at PAL in Brooklyn Park, they knew him by name. Matter of fact, if they saw him out there and he was doing something that was suspicious, the officers would be like,
they know how to pull you up.
Hey, Smoochie, come here. Mm-hmm. Come here, Smoochie.
Right. Or
do I need to go speak to your mama? Do I need to go speak to your pops?
In the 90s, when my homeboys would cut school, they cut Mervo, right? We would go to the PAL League to hoop. Mm-hmm. They ain't necessarily walk you back to school depending on your situation, but they had you. They got you.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so a couple of them guys grew up and blew my mind because we used to run these streets. They're police officers because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They saw a police officer that was positive in their life, man. And it changed
but those are the things that we need to bring back.
Right.
Those things like that are the things that we need to go back. And so, I love what you said that, and I love that program. And I got to find a way to bring it back because you said that they did not know.
The money for that's going.
That they were police until at the end, or after they gave out the awards and they came out in their uniforms. Mm-hmm. I love that.
I love that. Yep. Yeah. And just the fact you said love you to life. That's my favorite term.
I could tell you examples of my son being engaged with the detectives, and those same officers that were involved with PAL would pull up and say, hey, what you doing with this one? And the detectives are like, oh, we're checking him. We're suspicious of him. And they'll say, that's one of my guys. Mm-hmm. He's a good one. He's a good kid. He's one of my guys. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for that relationship,
they didn't allow those children to be targeted in the community.
Yeah.
So let me reel back. So we're on this rabbit hole because I'm speaking about the camp, and so we would tell the kids it was a youth leadership summit because even if you were chosen for the wrong reasons, we just said you were chosen specifically for this camp. That piece of knowledge empowered them.
Right.
And when they're ready for the whole truth, we can give it to them. But right now, just know that someone saw leadership qualities in you that needed to be developed, because some of these kids are leaders. The ones that get in the most trouble are leaders. They just leading people down the wrong path. We need you to that, right?
Donna.
So taking a Dason brought this up. So I met Dason because he didn't even know that he was an at-risk, high-risk kid at the time. And it's funny to talk to him now. He's like, I was okay. I'm like, okay. I'm not gonna argue with you. But because there's no one doing this anymore, on August 2nd, August 7th, he is going to try and recreate that experience for the kids he mentors. And so we're looking for speakers to come through during the week. If you want to spend a night at the campsite, we're going to do a movie night and different stuff. But having guys like you come through and just speak to the kids and empower them, and anything you feel appropriate. If you want to put together a little workshop for them, we are open to that. Dason's right now looking for people to just come through and give them that experience. He'd love to have police involved, but there's too much politics and not enough time to get it. I think at some point we can get the camp back. There's a young lady, Nicole Chang, with NAACP. She was one of the people that made that camp happen. We need to get the NAACP back on. There was the Explorers program, which is a line item in the consent decree, although they haven't been doing it at all. Officer Ron Cromer is rebuilding the curriculum to come back in September. So we're going to support him in anything he needs, because the Explorers is the closest thing to the police athletic league that we have left. And when I tell you this is my truth, I got pictures, I got receipts, bro. So some of the kids that were in the Explorers program with Officer Ron Cromer in the Southeast District at the time, some of those kids were known to be affiliated with specific gangs, but they were also under our wing and on our radar. And so they were at a Patterson. Cromer still over there once a week teaching at Patterson. His Explorers program, he was bringing kids into the gym, into the precinct. We were training them to wrestle and fight, and Steve Williams was teaching them Muay Thai. And Cromer's like, if you know him, he's like a fake Conan. He's a fake ass Conan. He's like swole, right? He's teaching them how to work out, right? And so, politically correct or not, like cat's out of the bag now, known gang members from Patterson were in the police gym working out with police. And even on one Sunday, we had them in church with the police. Known gang members, like, come on, bro, there must be something at work in that work that, like, there's something there essential that's different from all this other transactional crap. If you can get dudes who were like
family,
these dudes in church with the police being seen with that, it's because of this relational equity, because they know, like, this guy's got me.
And then they trust, and they're able to come to you and tell you things that you may not be able to get willingly, or cooperatively,
or just trusting you,
they trust you,
right? And they feel heard,
right? And they feel heard. And it's interesting that you bring up the Explorers program, because I know that one of the things that we have investigated in reference to Yolanda's mayoral platform and campaign is there's a program through the American Legion that a lot of folks don't know about, and it's kind of like a cadet or an ROTC, but for the police force. And what it does, it takes 11th graders, 12th graders, and it grooms them to kind of be pre-qualified candidates for the academy. Get them to really be empowered and understand community law enforcement, what community policing is really about. And it also instills discipline and structure to them, almost like an ROTC program, and they get a better love and respect for law enforcement, that relationship.
It takes that taste out of their mouth.
Correct.
And understanding, like, for instance, I know they're always listening anyway, so I'll just say it. I know two people that got recruited so I'm from Baltimore, Northeast Baltimore. I know two people that got recruited at the age of 15 by the NSA.
Wow.
And I don't know what the heck they do, but the time they got picked up, and it's through opportunities like that. They're 20, they're in their 20s now, and they are making bank, bro. They can't even tell me what they do, but like I could be like, yo, I need I got a family.
If they tell you they gotta get rid of you. If they tell you they gotta get rid of you.
I always joke that they're always listening, because even if my phone's off, they'll turn it on and listen if they want to. But being available to our community is important. So, like, for that American Legion group, like, send them a copy of this flyer for this event, because I'd love to have them at the community portion of the event. It's not just a boxing event. We're going to have food trucks. We're going to have a kids zone, Dayson. And there's a group called Soccer Without Borders out of Southeast Baltimore. They've been around
Yep.
20 years.
Yeah, I heard it.
I got Nick. So Nick's coming through. He's going to be doing scrimmages because he's going to take one of the soccer fields and run some soccer stuff.
And who knew that we had a soccer community? Because outside of our immigrant community, again, Central America, they love soccer. Jamaicans, Trinidadians,
everybody,
our Caribbean.
Yeah, because it's football to them.
Right.
Yeah,
America, there's still there's a love there, but again, that passion has always been known, for folks that are foreign to us. But to see that there is an organization that for over 20 years has pushed soccer in our community, and
it's and they use it as a platform to meet immigrants who are documented or undocumented and get them in connection with the resources available. They do it through soccer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, with something they connect to. They relate to that. They love soccer.
And then the
soccer's their pastime,
Yeah, the American Legion program we're talking about. I'd love to have them in we're going to have a community resource fair. So if you guys are available on the 22nd, man, people empowered by the struggle, set up a table, please. We need you. We need the information like the American Legion program. We need our community to have access to the resources available, but no one's going to come to a resource fair. It sounds boring. No one's coming to a health fair. That shit's part of my language. It's just But
Chet, what was the date on that?
July 22nd.
July 20. Okay, that's a Saturday.
Yep.
At what time?
1 to 8. So, what was I saying?
Donna, you putting that down?
But everybody will
I'd send you the invite.
The Ravens game, right? If you say, hey, there's a Ravens game, everybody's going to show up. Hey, there's a boxing fight. Everybody wants to show up. We got all these rivalries. We got some nice matchmaking going on. So people are going to show up for that. And by the way,
you got to think Baltimore now with Tank, Dante Davis, really being kind of the I guess the drum major in reference to boxing in the city. When you think of boxing, his name is synonymous to our city, and our city has, this great love and respect for him. So
that's why I need him to do better. That's why I need him to stay out of trouble.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah, but again, it still gives folks he set a bar though. You know what I mean? In other words, there's a bar to be set, and there's a great respect for Baltimore boxing because of what he's accomplished, and it also creates pathways and shows that there's doors that can be opened, to anybody here in Baltimore if they apply themselves.
We have a lot of rare talent
to work with them.
We have a lot of rare talent in Baltimore.
Absolutely.
That's just untapped, and it seems like it's done intentionally.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. So, like I said, if we don't have it, we need to find a way to build it. We have artists, we have musicians, we have theater, we have film, we have poets. We have a lot of untapped talent in Baltimore. And me personally, I think that we can be the next place where people want to fly in and live and be that place where, they become somebody like down in Atlanta or up in Florida or
how many residents, Yolanda? Yeah. How many residents you want?
I want 1 million people, over 1 million. Yeah, I want at least 1 million people back here in 8 years.
It's funny you said that because it's coming. That kind of swag's coming. We're next on the radar for that. This whole film industry, happened in LA and New York, is coming to Baltimore next.
And in Atlanta. Atlanta is now
it's funny because it's
the Black metropolis.
Yep.
As far as business, entrepreneurial, film,
because look at the map, it's all connected.
Creative arts, and but again, I saw the building up of Atlanta. By the way, when the Olympics came to Atlanta, and we saw that money that was poured into Atlanta, I knew that Atlanta, because most areas or most countries that have hosted the Olympics, whether summer or winter, there has been some sort of economic infusion or growth. It just so happens that because Atlanta was a strong Black, stronghold, it has a large Black population, that when that wealth started coming into Atlanta, we gravitated to those opportunities and we built on it, and people are starting to flourish to Atlanta. That is the next gold rush, currently. But I'd like to see, like Yolanda said, I'd like to see us flip that and have people come back to the north, because we know that many folks migrated to cities like Cleveland, Chicago, Philadelphia, Baltimore for
And
opportunity.
they homesick.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they're
let
homesick.
me tell you, Baltimore. So there's a guy. He's a publisher for the Latin Opinion. It's kind of like the Donnie Glover of the Latino community. If you ask me, it's my perspective. So Mr. Eric Rubio, he actually single-handedly like brought the World Cup to Baltimore, and City Hall blew it.
Wow.
Like he
not surprised.
They were announcing. I don't know if you remember when they were making the announcements. World Cup was between like Philly,
Yep.
Orlando. It was like 3 cities, but it wasn't. They had to say that. But Baltimore had it on lock because Mr. Uribio is like he's like Don. He knows everybody. This is his bro. He said, "Hey, bro, bring it to Baltimore," and they were going to do it. City Hall messed it up because of all the taxing and the permitting and all the things we run into.
Unnecessary.
Right. They were like, "We're bringing you to World Cup. Like, just pony up and let's do this." And they messed it up, bro. Like,
but you'll let a junkie in his basement formulate the Formula One racing that was a failure in Baltimore, cut down thousands of trees from downtown, in the process.
And didn't pay thousands of people.
And they didn't have to pay a whole bunch of fees. We fixed the roads for them downtown so the cars could ride smoothly. Like, we did all this to cater to one particular sport, and the sports that we know
with a very specific demographic.
Right. And sports that we know are more inclusive, like, for instance, soccer is inclusive. Soccer is global. Soccer is just not an American thing. And because it's global, in a lot of cases, FIBA and a lot of those organizations that are surrounded by soccer, they do a lot of investment in these communities. They do a lot in reference to school and supporting scholarships and things of that nature. These are the organizations that we should be working with, but we can't find ways to work with these type of organizations that give back, that really and truly we should be waiving permits and fees to bring them in, because we know a game like the World Cup or something like that, you realize the
culture,
the millions of the tens of millions of dollars it would bring into the city versus the money that was brought in with Formula One. And again, Formula One is international as well. I don't want to knock Formula One, but as far as its popularity is concerned, it's nothing compared to football or soccer. I'm talking about when I say football, I'm saying soccer football.
Yeah. And here's the other comment, Yolanda, is this. So I'm sure you're familiar with the Bel Air Edison community culture. You're familiar with like Pennsylvania Lawrence culture. So these communities, which are relatively unsafe, like if you don't belong there, the boys in these neighborhoods are actually scared to go to the harbor because they don't want to get shot or robbed. They don't want to go to the harbor. This is the truth, because we're getting with like some of the marching bands that we do for the Pennsy Ave parade on August 26th, and we're going to do a night parade October 21st before Halloween. And I'm telling the kids about it. Y'all need volunteers. Y'all want to come like jam with the bands? And they're like, "Nah, we don't go to the harbor. We don't want to get shot or robbed." And I'm like, because
it's a different type down there.
What?
Yeah, so
you don't know who hood they from.
Right. So, and that's the thing. Like
they feel safer in their hood
because they know, at least they know what they know for their neighborhood. Exactly. That's wild to me, because when I was a kid, like going to the harbor was a treat. What's going on at the harbor? What are we doing? And now the kids, they don't F with it. They're like, nah, we're good right here.
Because anything can happen, because they know that protection doesn't look the same because of their skin color.
And black people got a thing about masses of water. Keep us in the cement.
Yeah.
You might push me in the water. I'll stay back here in the cement.
Hepatitis, bro. That harbor water is nasty.
You come out. Did you all see the video where the girl jumped in it on purpose?
As a white woman?
No.
What?
Look,
I'm just saying that's like
stereotype.
Nobody can figure out why she jumped in it on purpose last week. She jumped in it.
Mental illness, bro. Like,
well, I mean, I'm about to say mental illness, and she probably took a pill or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so Chap, you wait till you see our platform that we ready come up with. We're putting in the finishing touches on it as we speak, and we're gonna have it ready within the next 3 days. I'm telling you, Chap. That's why I say I need y'all to send over y'all stuff so we can, so it can go in there, and nobody's gonna have a platform like us. Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, we really want to look at solutions. And matter of fact, while we have our last, maybe 18 minutes here, let's really talk about solutions. Like we all know, the purple elephant in the room, is the mass shooting that took place in Brooklyn. And being a stakeholder, Yolanda's from South Baltimore, Donna's from South Baltimore. I had 14 years in Brooklyn homes. I've actually have partaked in many, Brooklyn days, and actually have given Brooklyn days, set the speakers up, set the grills up, and everybody go spend their food stamps, and we all collectively come together, and have a cookout and basically enjoy ourselves. We never had any incidences, but let's talk about the purple elephant in the room. We know that communities like Cherry Hill, Westport, especially on the south side of Baltimore, have been marginalized for decades.
Events.
Right. Like how do we help these communities? Because what I'm afraid of, Chap, is, and I've said this many times throughout the week, I'm afraid that like Gilmore Homes, everybody assembled, the world was monitoring, all the news media from all over the globe was monitoring what was happening at Sandtown Winchester. And we've made national news. And in some cases, I'm pretty sure we're on the daily news, so we probably have made, I'm talking about the UK daily news. So I'm pretty sure, because they always talk about Baltimore, and they were always reporting about, Freddie Gray. So I'm pretty sure they already know in London what is taking place in reference to a mass shooting in Baltimore. I don't want us to forget Brooklyn homes like we forgot Gilmore. We all assembled to Gilmore. There was this One Love Baltimore initiative, and then all these folks disappeared, and all the money is gone. And Sandtown, Winchester, and that whole Penn North and Gilmore community is even worse than it was.
Yeah. That's because once you turn the cameras off and take the attention off of it, then they on to the next event.
But how do we prevent that? Like, how do we assemble into Brooklyn that doesn't get them to go back into that state of feeling that they are forgotten people?
Let's look at a bigger lens, right? Let's look at a bigger lens for a second and look at like Southside, Cherry Hill. So bigger picture, the last 50 years, University of Maryland and Hopkins, right? East and West. And they've kind of like managed a lot of like influence in the city. The new people of influence taken over in the next 2 years, officially, is Amazon over East, like east of Fells Point, all the industrial waterfront. And who owns all the waterfront west of like Harbor East, Fells Point, and everything west is Kevin Plank's brother. So technically Under Armour doesn't own it, but they do, all the way to Port Covington. If you go down Cherry Hill, what do you see? You see them engineering out the banks, right? So that they can develop new waterfront properties. They got a brand new 21st century school or two. They got a brand new rec center. You got to be 18 or older to go in, top of the line.
We're talking about all in South Baltimore.
Yeah.
All this is the staging.
But it's not
of South
for
Baltimore.
us.
Right.
And so as you move in South and you see that this mass shooting happened, what is the real purpose? What is the real motivation behind it? Because all the development they're doing is not for the people that live there. In fact, they're dividing up the people that live there through the process. For instance, we're closing schools because the schools are underattended, but they're underattended because you took half the population
out
and
of
sent
them away.
Elementary school because you had to justify building the new school and you didn't meet the requirement. So now you're just, and it's a whole, you got to understand the bigger picture to really be able to see or start to begin to unfold what's happening in Brooklyn with the mass shooting. And understand this too, like mass shooting by definition, if you look it up, it's between 3 or 5. I think the federal definition is 5 or 4. I like to say 4.
Yeah, I think it's 4 to 5.
So understand that in Baltimore, we experience mass shootings pretty frequently, more than is announced, because we don't use the terminology correctly. We just say there's a shooting, but it's a mass shooting. Like the last one I was at down Milton, there was a quadruple shooting. That's called a mass shooting, but we call it a quadruple shooting. Now 30 or more, now we say mass, all of a sudden everybody's arms are up, and nothing against the people that suffered from that.
And but Yolanda actually saw a report this week that actually said that Baltimore ranks the 3rd in the nation in reference to the amount of mass shootings that have taken place. That's a big thing to be ranked as 3rd, for the sheer amount of volumes of shootings.
It bothers me that we don't talk about it or call it what it is. And then when something bigger happens, it's a big surprise to everybody.
Yeah, but they teach you that. They train you that to use the terminology because that's political. They teach you the terminology that they want you to use so they don't cause a panic. Because if they constantly keep talking about the mass shootings, then until they want to change the narrative and it's a mass shooting, you better get scared. You better move. You better sell your property. You better get out there while you can. And so we can move in real cheap on y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fear tactic. It's a
Mm-hmm.
fear tactic, and in many cases, I tell this story all the time about Reverend Warren, Al Sharpton's friend, who actually spoke to a developer. The developer told him, said, "Poor people don't fight. That's why we come into neighborhoods like Harlem. That's why we come into impoverished communities and transform them and gentrify them. Because once we come in, people are so sick and tired of fighting and struggling and dealing with
we
the
shall overcome
crime."
again.
Right. We're so tired of it that you give us a ticket, for a way out of this concrete jungle. We're willing to get out of this concrete jungle, but we don't realize that truly the American cities is where the concentrated wealth is. There is more wealth that has been generated in this country through cities. Whether you look at San Francisco, whether you look at Silicon Valley, whether you look at Seattle, Washington, whether you look at Chicago and the mercantile, whether you look at New York and the stock market, there's more money that's been made in urban cities and cities in America than any other place. So why would we want to move away from where the economic opportunities and the wealth is? We're being duped to leave the wealth and leave
That's exactly,
opportunity.
you know what, Jason, that's exactly what it is. Because if you remember, at one time they wanted to make everybody think that the American dream was the white picket fence and all the land, and the further out the better. And then in the city we had access to everything. That very close supermarket and that very close everything. We didn't need a car to get places. We had MTA to get around. But now all the jobs and all of the people with the money want to be in the downtown area. So now the people want to move closer to the job because that's where the money at. But in order to get us away from that, our property value has to fall, and our safety net has to go. Our schools have to go to be devastated.
Right.
So
to go to hell.
We're all collateral damage.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, we watched it with EDBI. You're talking about life residents that lived in Madison, that whole Milton, Madison, that whole corridor that went, down the Chase and Rose all the way down there to Broadway. They lived in impoverishment. I know because I sold drugs and I've been in that area, even as a hustler and used to know what that area used to be like, especially at the peak of the crack epidemic. And people were tired of living in that community under distress. And so you hand them a voucher and say, here, go to the county, go to Essex, and you'll have, a little bit of acre of land. You'll have a parking pad in the back. You don't have this crime and this concrete jungle that you have. But again, you don't realize that technically you're walking away from opportunity. Many of these particular neighborhoods that have been torn down and have redeveloped are now worth $300,000, if not more, for the properties. And the neighborhood is still the same neighborhood. Nothing's really changed other than you've redeveloped in the neighborhood.
The people.
And you flipped the
our
people
family, we changed because we got moved away.
Right, we got moved, but it was so easy to pick us off because again, we didn't understand the value of where we lived at, and in some cases, if there wasn't intergenerational wealth stolen from us, and we were stakeholders and we owned those lands on Madison, we owned those lands on Chase, on Ashland, we would have fought for those lands. You wouldn't have been able to come in and just easily move us out the way that you did. We would have fought as property tax owners.
But Jason,
as owners.
You know what's sad? You know what's sad? Because they talk about the first generation of college degrees. How about the first generation of homeowners?
Yeah. That's a serious
so what
conversation.
They did was they made us think that our things wasn't important. Our things didn't have value because things started happening to the community and people wanted a way out. And they made sure that these people had it easy to sell your home, no down payment. I just seen a commercial the other day with this couple got their 2 children on there talking about, and we pay all the costs and we move your stuff.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
to myself,
buying your distressed
As
house,
is.
any condition,
right?
as
But
is,
I'm thinking
correct.
to myself, isn't this a child labor law violation? The children talk about we move your stuff.
Hey, so
No, Yolanda, no, because as long as you put your kid on that advertisement, your kid is a write off for you, honey. What you mean?
Yeah.
That's tax
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah.
Wow.
They are employed.
I had a quick question for y'all.
Mm.
Were you telling me, Yolanda, yesterday or earlier today? Forget when we were talking. Was you had something, because we only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to touch on it. Something about a woman receiving some form of reparations.
Yeah, so we was
Wanna get
on.
that
We
in?
was yeah. We was that. Thank you, Chad, because I actually forgot.
Mm-mm.
We actually have that platform that we're building, and it was a confirmation to hear it about them provide them having down in Illinois. They was the first ones to receive reparations from from their their city. It's not
Oh,
down in Illinois.
Up
It's
in Illinois.
yeah. So down there they the
Up
first.
there. up there.
Yeah, so well, up, down, side to side. But yeah, they was the first ones to receive reparations, and they was given the blueprint on how we need to start fighting for reparations and start having that uncomfortable conversation. And they actually did it through housing. They actually did it through taxes, and they actually gave out cash. And they're still fighting on a federal level. That's why they needed to go, in every state, because the more that you have standing behind you, the less that they can deny you, basically. And I forgot to send you that information, chap. I'm sorry. I will do that as soon as I get off.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we talk about it.
There's actually two continual fights, by the way. Not only are we looking at federal reparations, but we have to really look at international reparations, because we know that many countries have a history of perpetuating the slave trade. Spain, for instance.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what they was actually talking about. The reparations you get is through how the slave, which way the slave trade went.
Correct.
And how did it affect the community? How
the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the England partaked in it.
And they're not even just
the
talking
Dutch,
about black people. They're saying that poor white people were done crazy too. Doing this, doing the Atlantic trade and all this kind of stuff. The ones that was actually helping black people, they deserve their reparations too.
Yeah.
And guys, I hate to cut you guys off, but my phone is draining quick. So I have a feeling it's going down, you guys. And I know we don't have that much time. So I just want to say I love you guys. And chaps, thanks so much. It's so great to see you. I love when you come on and join us. So I just didn't want to die on you guys. So I just wanted to just throw that out and love you.
Love you too.
Love you too.
Right.
Yeah, again, so basically,
preparation.
They're laying out the blueprint. I didn't even know that California has theirs put in. It's a whole bunch of places, and they actually want people to start joining in the conversation. They have a meeting coming up where the ones who created this, and when I say that she gave it from top to bottom, everybody in the middle, who can you contact? The blueprint, everything is laid out, and what is called wait a minute, let me get it. It ain't even in that phone.
I'll just say, let's get a link up on your website so we can get people to the website.
Yeah, because we need as many people to join this movement as possible, to be honest.
And I think that's where the real value comes in at. Like I said, when we talk about gentrification, there are counter mechanisms. There are ways that we can counter gentrification, but we have to start looking at housing first as a right, as a human right, which has already been declared by the UN and by many other countries that housing is a right. So we really need to kind of lean on that international principle or international following.
Sounds like a conversation for Quita. Get her on the show. Talk about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is called firstrepair.org.
And what's interesting is that HUD recently has posted on all of their federal websites that housing is considered to be a human right issue. Now, we know that unfortunately HUD has not been practicing that on the ground in reference to public housing in many urban cities. But I think that it's up to us as advocates, as folks who are on the ground, who actually see how our folks are living in public housing, to be those advocates to go back to HUD and say, you know what, you're standing on this principle, but you're not living by this principle. You're not implementing this principle of housing as a human right. It should be, you should have dignity in it. We ain't saying the Taj Mahal, but you should have dignity in it. It should be humane. It shouldn't be dangerous. You shouldn't have to deal with the fact that if you raise a child in the housing projects or in some sort of
HUD violated their
option,
own. Yeah,
that you risk the chance of losing your child.
Yeah, but
in the
HUD
process.
violated their own. What is it called, Jason? Is on the tip of my tongue.
Their creed, their declaration.
Yeah, their own mission.
Right, their mission. Right.
They violated their own because it said that they're entitled to fair, safe, decent housing, and that's what these people are not getting, especially down in Brooklyn Homes, Cherry Hill, Douglas Projects, McCullough Homes, Poe Homes. None of them are getting what the mission has stated. Right. They live in deplorable, nasty conditions. They make these people fight over. They throw crumbs out there, and they make them fight over like we're still the slaves in the shack. And we know why the projects was actually built. It was to contain black people and keep them away from white people who did not want to live with black people. So why do we still, even though it could have been a good thing. It really could have. It could have been an inclusive thing. It did not have to look like, a third world country. It did not. The leadership is the ones that chose to have these people living the way they do since the 1960s. And nobody, no administration, I don't care who it was, no administration has came in and did anything to change how these people living in housing.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is that it builds a mindset, because I keep telling folks, some of the, I know a lot of folks in Brooklyn Homes, and I see the feeds that are going from all my friends on social media and all their children that I've helped raise, or children that used to come to us, because we ran a store for almost 14 years illegally out of the carryout store, chicken boxes. We fed many people with the Brooklyn Homes. The frozen cups. We were doing Funnel Cake Man before the Funnel Cake King was out. So
Funnel Cake King, baby.
People will declare that in Brooklyn Homes that we were doing that.
Matter of fact, Chap, I got a snowball machine that we're dying to use that I can bring down to the event and do some snowballs. But I want to make this last statement before we leave. Sometimes we're too strong for people, and people fear what they don't understand. Like Cornel West, who said, you can't lead people if you don't love the people. You cannot save people if you don't serve the people. He was absolutely positively correct with that statement.
Say that one more time. You broke up real quick.
I said, you can't lead people if you don't love the people. You cannot save people if you don't serve the people. So that's saying that, we got to get rid of this regular style of politicians who think that they're celebrities now. You're not a celebrity. You're a public servant. And we need to get back to the public service piece.
And on that last note, we got to go. But I was making a point in reference to the friends that I see from Brooklyn Homes on my feeds. Everyone talks about Brooklyn Home as a forgotten city, as a forgotten community. And we need to change that narrative. That's just point blank. We need to change that narrative. Nobody in our city should feel marginalized just because they live in a community that is filled with impoverishment. We have to find ways to lift them up, to present them as the best of our community.
Brooklyn Lives Matters too.
That's right. Brooklyn Lives Matters too. That's right. I like that. I'm gonna have to post that tonight. So with that, thank you folks for joining us, Chap.
Well, say again, Project Lives Matter.
Yes. Thank you again, Chap, for the work that you do. And again, thank you for holding us down whenever we're not here. So until next week, family, go out there, do something special for someone other than your selfish selves. Give yourself accordingly. So we love you, and we'll speak to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Love you, Chad.
Yeah, thank you, Chad.
Love you, Lana J. Thank you.